McMillan was over the moon. He pulled his cell phone out of his pocket and called home to inform his wife that his two-day meeting in San Francisco had been canceled, and he wouldn't be taking his 5:30 p.m. flight after all. He was heading back to the office to drop off some documents and expected to be home in about 3 hours. In reality, the two-day meeting was actually a job interview. He had caught wind of a vacancy for the position of division president at a national company that had recently relocated one of its divisions to the Chicago area. Everything he knew about Chappell Electronics suggested that working there would be fantastic, and the regional division's office was close enough to his home that his commute wouldn't take any longer than it did now. Chappell is a manufacturer of electronic devices, including video surveillance equipment and other widely used electronics. The position was a perfect fit for his skill set, and he had been highly recommended to the company by his boss and friend, Michael Kraft. Michael had close personal connections with several high-ranking individuals at Chappell and had helped facilitate the introduction. Although Michael was unhappy to see Alex leave, he understood he couldn't hold him back and gave him a glowing recommendation. In fact, Michael was held in such high regard that the only reason the interview took place at all was to satisfy the formal protocol required by Chappell. The trip was canceled because they planned to meet him in Chicago at the division headquarters, not at the corporate headquarters in San Francisco. According to Michael, they were going to offer him the position right away. This came as somewhat of a surprise to Alex, but the company had been following his career for several years and out of respect for his boss, had refrained from making a direct offer earlier. They hadn't made him an official offer yet, but this would be settled when he met with them the following day. Chappell had outlined a high salary and benefits package that made Alex's head spin. Regardless of where his offer landed within that range, he knew it would significantly improve their standard of living. If everything went according to plan, Alex would start the job in 3 weeks. When he arrived at the office, Michael was already waiting for him with a huge smile on his face. He congratulated Alex warmly. "If anyone deserves this, it's you. Congratulations." Apparently, Michael's friends had already called him to share the news that the job was Alex's. Alex replied, "Come on, Michael, they haven't even made me an official offer yet. You'll have to hold off on the congratulations, but thanks anyway." Alex was genuinely moved by the support he received from Michael and told him that Chappell Electronics had informed him the person hired for the position would need to start work in 3 weeks. Alex added that if he were offered the position, he would accept it. Michael responded, "I knew this was going to happen, so, to be honest, I've already chosen your replacement. It's Colton, and she's fully qualified to take over for you starting tomorrow, as you well know since you taught her everything she knows." Alex smiled. Colton had joined his team 2 years ago, and as Michael said, she was more than capable of replacing him. She had even stepped into the role a couple of times when Alex took extended vacations. He was thrilled with Michael's choice and genuinely happy for him. She deserved the promotion and would undoubtedly excel in the role. "Spend this week getting up to speed on all your ongoing projects," Michael continued, "and then take the remaining 2 weeks off. You'll be incredibly busy as soon as you start at Chappell. You'll miss your cozy job here. Also, Alex, their benefits package is enormous. They know what they're getting with you and are ready to pay handsomely for it. Ask for everything you could hope for. They'll pay it." When Alex arrived home, he noticed that his wife's car wasn't in the garage. He recalled that she was likely still at work and would be home soon. Entering the kitchen, he dropped his bag on the floor and walked over to the refrigerator to grab a beer. He glanced into the dining room and saw that his wife had set the table with 2 place settings of their finest china and crystal, along with candles, napkins and holders, and other romantic decorations. He smiled to himself, thinking she was planning a special dinner for him when he returned home from his interviews. As he headed to their bedroom, he noticed the answering machine's blinking light. They had 2 messages. The first message was the one he had left earlier. The second message, however, made him freeze in shock when he heard it. "Hey baby, it's Larry. I just wanted to let you know I'm planning to arrive on schedule around 6:30 p.m. I can't wait to hold you again. Every time I think about the last time we were together, I can't get it out of my head. I'm going to make sure this night is unforgettable. See you soon, baby. Be ready for me." Alex couldn't believe what he had just heard. He recognized that voice. Larry. The message was from Larry Evandale, one of his wife Jodi's ex-boyfriends. Larry had dated Jodi in high school, but Alex had won her over and married her. Now, Larry was some big-shot lawyer in Texas, and as far as Alex knew, still unmarried. Until this moment, Alex had never had a reason to doubt Jodi's love or loyalty. Under his breath, he muttered, "That deceitful woman. How could she do this to me?" Then Alex remembered the dining table set for a romantic dinner, and the anger he had felt turned into pure rage. When Jodi's mother passed away, each of her 4 daughters took 2 sets of china, crystal, silverware, and napkins with ornate silver napkin rings as keepsakes. Jody cherished these items and only used them on special occasions. He thought to himself, well, from this moment on, we'll see just how special this occasion really is. He went to his workshop and grabbed a sledgehammer. Returning to the dining room, he began smashing all the china and crystal. He also struck the dining table and the napkin holders, bending and damaging them to the point where they were likely beyond repair. He tore the napkins in half and placed them on top of the shattered glassware. Then he removed his wedding ring, flattened it with a hammer, and laid it on one of the torn napkins. Alex pulled out his cell phone and dialed his home number. Jody, it's Alex. Based on the message I just heard a few minutes ago, I assume you had a very special dinner planned tonight with Larry. But as you might have noticed, I kind of ruined it for you both. Then again, what is it compared to how you destroyed our marriage? See you around. Goodbye. After doing this, Alex picked up his bag from the kitchen floor and headed to his car. He drove straight to O'Hare Airport and called to check the arrivals of flights from DFW in Texas. There were only a few flights, United 5412 and Delta 1253, that could have brought Larry to the city in time to reach Alex's house by 6:30 p.m. Alex called United Airlines and asked to speak with a customer service representative. He inquired, is Larry Evandale on flight United 5412 arriving from DFW? Regardless of how the customer service representative answered, Alex believed he could deduce which flight Larry was on. If they said, no sir, there is no Larry Evandale on this flight, he would know Larry was on Delta Flight 1253. If they said, sir, I can't disclose that information to you, he would assume Larry was on the United flight. As it turned out, Larry was on the Delta flight, and Alex waited near the gate as passengers disembarked. When Larry walked out, Alex approached him from behind and quickly spoke in a venomous tone, Larry, don't even think about going to my house tonight. If you do, I'll find you and I'll kill you. Your smartest move would be to just get back on a plane to Texas. Yes, that would be the wisest choice you could make. Larry was stunned and at a loss for words. He couldn't fathom how Alex had figured out he would be arriving at that time and couldn't think of anything to say. However, when Alex walked away, Larry finally regained his composure and shouted, but Alex, it's not what you think. It was already too late though, as Alex had disappeared into the crowd and didn't hear a word. Larry had also known Alex from high school and college and was well aware that Alex could be a tough bastard when he wanted to be. Damn, Larry muttered to himself. If I stick around here, I might get shot. She's not worth it. He quickly made up his mind, pulled out his cell phone, and called to cancel the business meeting he had scheduled for the next day. Then he walked over to the nearest service counter and booked the next flight back to Dallas. His flight was leaving in 2 hours, so Larry headed to the bar and treated himself to a much-needed drink, or 3 or 4. By the time he boarded his flight back to Dallas, he was feeling pretty tipsy but relieved to be alive. He figured he'd find some other, less risky woman back in Dallas. Around 5:30 p.m., Patricia Hunt Davenport, Trish, unlocked the door and entered the house, heading straight to the kitchen. She saw the blinking light on the answering machine and, fully expecting a message from Larry, pressed the play button. Instead of a message from Larry, it was the one Alex had left on the machine shortly before leaving. Jody, it's Alex. Based on the message I just heard a couple of minutes ago, I assume you had a very special dinner planned tonight with Larry. But as you might have noticed, I kind of ruined it for you too. But what is that compared to how you've destroyed our marriage? See you around. Goodbye. Trish was stunned. How had Alex gotten Larry's message? He was supposed to be on a flight to San Francisco. She thought, oh my God, Alex thinks it's Jody who's meeting Larry. Oh no, this is terrible. Then she noticed the destruction in the dining room, and her panic intensified. Trish called her own home, and her sister, Jody Hunt McMillan, answered, oh my God, Jody, we had a huge problem. Alex came home, got the message from Larry, and he smashed the china and crystal, wrecking the entire dining room and the festive table you set up for me. Get the kids in the car and come here. Oh God, Jody, I'm so sorry this happened. As it turned out, Trish Davenport was the married woman who wanted to experience a bit of romance and an extramarital fling with Larry Evandale. Her husband, Carl Davenport, was out of town on business, and Jody had planned to watch her children while Trish hosted her little rendezvous with Larry. Trish knew that Carl tended to work long hours when he was away and likely wouldn't call her until 8 p.m. or later, giving her several hours to spend with Larry. But now that Alex had figured out what was going on, the entire plan had fallen apart. Jody arrived with her 6-month-old twins in their car seats about 10 minutes after hanging up. They lived only a few blocks apart, so all she had to do was gather the children and drive over. As soon as Jody walked through the door, Trish noticed the panic on her face. Jody rushed over to her and exclaimed, oh my God, Trish, what am I going to do? How did this happen? Now Alex thinks I'm having an affair. This is all my fault, Jody, Trish admitted. I've been so overwhelmed since the twins were born, and I just wanted to feel alive and desirable again. When Carl told me he had to leave town, I think something inside me just snapped, and I lost touch with reality. I called Larry to see if he could come over, and well, you know the rest. Oh God, Jody, I can't believe this is happening. The two young women listened to all three messages on the answering machine. The first from Alex, the second from Larry, and the final one from Alex again. When they played Larry's message, they fully understood why Alex had destroyed everything and left the message he did. While no names were mentioned, Larry's message left no doubt about his intentions to engage in an intimate encounter with the woman he was calling. The first thing they needed to do was reach Alex and convince him that Jody hadn't been having an affair. The two women were confident they could sort things out with Alex and beg him to give Trish a chance to repair the damage she had done to her own marriage. Alex, however, had checked into the Hyatt Hotel in Oak Brook. He needed time to process everything and knew he couldn't go back home. The Hyatt had a nice restaurant and lounge, so even though he wasn't particularly hungry, he had a light dinner and then went to the lounge for a drink. After his second drink, he decided it would be wiser to take a bottle up to his room. He asked the bartender if he could order a bottle of scotch to be sent to his room and was assured it could be arranged. Settling into his room, Alex sat on a sofa with a glass of whiskey in hand. He knew he had missed a few calls that had gone to his voicemail, so he pulled out his cell phone and saw that he had 3 messages. The first one was from Trish, his sister-in-law and Jody's sister. Alex, I just got to your house, saw the mess in the dining room, and listened to the messages on your answering machine. Oh my God, Alex, you've made a mistake, and I just don't know what to do. I was the one who was supposed to meet Larry at your house, not Jody. She was at my house taking care of the twins. Oh God, Alex, this is a mistake. Please call me or call Jody, and we'll explain everything. Jody wasn't cheating on you, it was me. Please call me back. The second message was from Jody, saying more or less the same thing. Alex, darling, there's been a terrible misunderstanding, baby. I'm so sorry you thought I was cheating on you. That must have been awful for you. But sweetheart, it was all arranged at our house, and Trish was the one meeting Larry while I was babysitting the twins. Please call me or come home so we can talk. You'll see how much I love you and how horrible I feel about the pain this has caused you. The third message was also from Jody. Alex McMillan, this was a terrible mistake and misunderstanding. Come home so we can fix this before you do something rash. You know I love you. Alex pulled out his cell phone, selected his wife's number from his contact list, and sent her a text message. I got the messages from you and your sister, and I understand what you're saying, but I still need a couple of days to think this over. I'll call you tomorrow night. He was still upset but actually felt a little better about the situation. What he couldn't understand was why they had arranged this at his house. The twins were only 6 months old. Even though he understood what they were trying to explain in their messages, he planned to verify a few things for himself. A few seconds later, his phone buzzed, alerting him to a text message. It was from Jody. Alex, I want you to come home. Please don't stay away from me, baby. I need you here, please. Alex immediately replied, No, Jody, I need to sort this out. I'll call you tomorrow night. He turned off his phone and had a couple more drinks before finally collapsing onto the bed and falling asleep. The next thing Alex knew, sunlight was streaming through the windows, hitting him directly in the face. Reluctantly, he got up and drew the curtains to block out the light. It was killing him, and he was already feeling miserable enough. Alex glanced at the clock on the nightstand and saw that it was 8:30 a.m. He wasn't in a great mood, but he couldn't help smirking at the thought of how awful it would have been if his interview had been scheduled for the morning instead of 2 p.m. Knowing he still had a packed schedule, Alex decided to call home to check if Jody had left for work. She didn't answer his call, so he assumed she had already gone. Alex left his hotel room and took the elevator down to the garage. He got into his car and drove to an electronics store where he purchased a few items before heading home. As he drove, he thought, well, while I'm at it, I might as well test out some products from Chapel Electronics. When he'd arrived home, he felt relieved that no one was there. He quickly gathered some clothes and personal items for the next couple of days and placed them in his car. Then he spent time installing bugs in the phones in the kitchen and bedroom, as well as cameras in each room. He set up the transmitter in the basement workshop. Jody would never notice it there, and he would be able to access all the data from his laptop or cell phone. Once everything was in place and he was confident it would all work perfectly, Alex took a shower and got dressed for his interview. He managed to arrive at Chapel Electronics about 10 minutes early and waited for the interview to begin. As he expected, the interview went very well, and he was offered the position. The salary and benefits package they presented was incredible. They essentially gave him the freedom to name his own salary. Who was that? Alex realized they truly wanted him on board. I accept the position, pending a final agreement on the benefits package between us, he said. The benefits are excellent, and I don't see a need for any changes there, but the salary needs some adjustment. Joe Sanford, his new boss, looked surprised and responded, Alex, the salary we're offering is nearly double what you're currently earning. What else needs adjusting? Alex chuckled softly, and Joe's face started to redden slightly as he grew frustrated. Alex reassured him, saying, Joe, I'll take less. Give me a $50,000 increase over my previous salary, and let's develop a performance-based incentive program that will allow me to earn more than what you're offering if I do my job well. In addition to the incentive program, I like a specific bonus if all the goals are met. What do you think? Does that sound reasonable? Joe smiled and said, Michael was right. You're exactly the person we need for this position. You got a deal, Alex. Together, we'll evaluate where we are now and where we want to be, and I'm confident the board will approve the incentive and bonus programs. We'll finalize the numbers later, if that's all right with you. After the interview and subsequent meetings, Alex and Joe went to dinner at Morton's Steakhouse. Later, Alex returned to his hotel to reflect further on his home situation. Feeling exhausted, he decided to wait until morning to review the surveillance footage he had set up before the interview. When the morning sunlight hit his face, Alex got up and prepared for the new day. He arranged to have breakfast delivered to his room and began reviewing the surveillance footage recorded over the past 24 hours. He listened to a couple of phone calls unrelated to the situation and then came across a call from Jody to Larry Evandale. Larry, I know everything went sideways and I'm sorry about that. Alex was supposed to be on a flight to San Francisco, but unfortunately, that trip got canceled. Larry responded, but the only flight he was on was right in front of me when I got off the plane. I know Alex confronted you, but what else did you expect him to do in this situation? Well, babe, no piece of ass is worth getting killed over, but I was really looking forward to having both of you. Larry, we'll have to forget about all of this for now. I know we're planning to spend the night together after Trish went home, but I need to convince Alex that you were only meeting with Trish, not with me too. All right, but I'll call you next time I plan to come to Chicago and see if we can meet then. Just be careful not to let Alex find out next time. Yes, call me next time. And Larry, I was disappointed too. I was really looking forward to being with you again, and we'll just see what we can arrange in the future. Hearing this conversation made Alex's blood boil. That lying cheat. She's been unfaithful to me and will do it again, he muttered to himself. He took a moment, poured himself a glass of whiskey, and sat down. The next call he listened to was from Jody to Trish. Trish, get the kids in the car and come over. We need to sit down and figure out how to deal with this so none of us gets hurt. Come now, and please hurry. There were a few unrelated calls after that, and then early in the morning, Jody called her work to request the day off. Alex switched to the live feed from the cameras and audio in the house. He saw Jody cleaning up the mess he had made in the dining room. It was obvious she was upset over the destruction of her mother's heirlooms. There was no way to repair the china or crystal. He had shattered everything into tiny pieces, none larger than an inch. The silver was bent beyond repair, and the napkins were torn in half. There was nothing that could be done about it. He watched as Jody sobbed while throwing the broken pieces into the trash bin. He saw her pick up his flattened wedding ring, and her cries grew louder. She didn't throw it away. Instead, she held it in her hands as if it were a precious relic. Then she gently pressed it to her heart before slowly placing it in her pocket. He heard her moan, "Oh, what have I done? I have to convince him it was just Trish. I couldn't live without him. What was I thinking, telling Larry I'd see him another time?" Alex continued watching Jody throughout the day, analyzing her every move. After finishing the cleanup in the dining room, Jody went to the living room, sat in Alex's favorite chair, and began to cry. Alex watched her for a while until Trish arrived. Trish entered quickly, carrying her twins in their car seats, and set them down in the living room. Jody stood and rushed toward her, saying, "Trish, we have to convince Alex that it was only you who had an affair with Larry. If he thinks it was me, my marriage is over. He'll divorce me in a heartbeat if he believes I was involved. And then you'll be in trouble too, because Carl will get suspicious if Alex and I get divorced." "You're right, Jody," Trish replied. "But how do I save my marriage? If Carl gets suspicious, he might order a DNA test for the twins, and then I'm completely screwed. He'll find out the twins aren't his, and my marriage will fall apart. What are we going to do?" "As I said," Jody replied, "we have to convince him it was you and then beg him not to tell Carl. We need to appeal to his softer side so he won't destroy your marriage. Beg him and promise that you'll never make this mistake again." "Oh, damn it, Jody, I'll never make this mistake again. This whole thing terrifies me, and I really do love Carl. Whatever it takes, we'll do it. Convince Alex and beg him not to tell Carl." They both sat silently for a while, deep in thought, as Alex continued watching them through the surveillance feed. Finally, Jody spoke again. "Damn it, why did we all have to turn out like Mom? She cheated on Dad, and now you and I have cheated on our husbands, and Kay and Bobby have been cheating on theirs for years. I think the next time we all get together, we need to make a pact to never cheat again, although Mom never stopped until the day she died." Trish asked, "How many times have you cheated on Alex?" "I've only cheated on Carl twice, both times with Larry. This would have been the third. The second time I cheated, I got pregnant with the twins, and that was my last time. I'll never cheat on Carl again." Alex leaned in closer to his laptop screen, particularly interested in Jody's response. "Well," Jody admitted, "I guess I've cheated a few times too. Twice with Larry and a few times with guys who hit on me at bars. When Alex was traveling, I hated sitting at home alone, so I'd go out and let some guys buy me drinks and flirt a little. I guess a few times I went too far, and the next thing I remember, I was lying on my back with my legs spread. I can't say I regret it, but back then, there weren't any real intentions. I just didn't want to be alone." Trish laughed. "No intentions? Jody, that's priceless. You go to a bar, flirt, let guys buy you drinks, and then claim you never intended to let them sleep with you. You've really made me laugh." Jody smiled. "Okay, you're right, but it wasn't as good with them as it was with Larry. Those times just happen in the heat of the moment, but with Larry, we planned it in advance." Alex clenched his fists as he listened, his anger simmering just beneath the surface. He continued watching their conversation until Trish picked up the twins and went home. Their discussion revolved around the same topic, how they would convince Alex that Trish was guilty, not Jody, and how they planned to plead with him to keep their secrets from Carl. When Trish left, Jody went to bed. Alex observed her through the camera feed as she prepared for bed. She lay down, clutching Alex's flattened wedding ring, and began to sob again. "I have to fix this. I just can't lose him," she whispered through her tears. Alex shut off the feed. He had heard and seen enough. He poured himself another glass of whiskey and sat in silence, his thoughts racing. His emotions swung between anger and heartbreak as he replayed everything he had learned. Finally, exhausted by the turmoil, he fell into a restless sleep. When Alex woke the next morning, his resolve was set. He knew he couldn't confront Jody and Trish immediately. He needed a plan to ensure they both faced the consequences of their actions while preserving some semblance of control over the situation. He wasn't sure what his next steps would be, but he was determined not to let either woman manipulate him further. Alex decided to return home later that day, ensuring that both Jody and Trish were present. He didn't call ahead but arrived unannounced, his presence immediately creating tension in the air. Both women were in the kitchen, and when Alex walked in, they froze, unsure of what to say. Breaking the silence, Alex spoke with a calm yet icy tone. "I want you both to stop this nonsense right now. I already know what's going on. Don't try to deny it." Trish started to stammer. "Alex, He raised a hand to silence her. "No. You both had your chances to come clean, and I've heard more than enough to understand exactly what's been happening. I know about Larry, and I know about all the lies." Jody's face turned pale, and she whispered, "Alex, please, let me explain." "Explain what, Jody?" Alex interrupted. "How you've cheated on me with Larry. How you've lied to my face for years. Or should we talk about the others, the guys you picked up in bars? How many times have you decided our marriage meant nothing to you?" Jody's eyes filled with tears, and she choked out, "I made mistakes, Alex, but I love you. I don't want to lose you. Please give me a chance to fix this." Trish, attempting to shift some of the blame away from herself, added, "Alex, it was my fault. I called Larry, and it was my plan. Jody wasn't supposed to." Alex cut her off sharply. "Don't even try it, Trish. You're no better. You were ready to risk everything, your marriage, your kids, for a fling with Larry. And you think I didn't notice how much your twins look like him? Carl might not see it, but I do." Trish gasped and stammered. "You wouldn't dare tell Carl, would you?" "That depends," Alex replied coldly. "Right now, I'm the one deciding how this all plays out. So here's how it's going to be. Jody, you ignored our vows and destroyed our marriage. From this moment on, I'll be sleeping with whoever I want, whenever I want, and wherever I want. If you don't like it, you're free to leave." Jody's jaw dropped. "Alex, you can't mean that." "Oh, I mean every word," he said. "And you, Trish, since you're already such an expert at sneaking around, you're mine now. Unless, of course, you'd rather I have a conversation with Carl about Larry and those twins of yours." Trish's eyes widened in terror. "You wouldn't?" "Try me," Alex said. "So, what's it going to be?" Trish hesitated, her expression a mix of fear and defeat. Finally, she nodded. "Fine," she whispered. "I'll do whatever you say." "Good," Alex said, his voice cold and final. Now, Jody, this doesn't mean I'm forgiving you. In fact, I'll never forgive you. But for now, I'm staying here and you'll deal with it. And Trish, I expect to see you here every Tuesday and Thursday afternoon. No excuses. Trish nodded again, her head hanging low. Jody, on the verge of breaking down completely, pleaded, Alex, can't we find a way to fix this? Can't we try to move past it? Alex's glare was icy. You had your chance, Jody. Now you'll live with the consequences. With that, Alex left the kitchen, leaving both women in stunned silence. Over the following weeks, Alex carried out his plans with cold precision. Trish visited him on the agreed-upon days, and he began casually dating other women, both strangers and acquaintances. Jody, left to watch from the sidelines, grew increasingly desperate as she realized just how much damage her infidelity had caused. Despite her efforts to repair their relationship, Alex kept her at arm's length, unwilling to let her forget the betrayal. The home that had once been filled with warmth and love was now a cold, tension-filled battleground, with Alex firmly in control of the outcome. 1 month after discovering the affair, Alex made his final decision. One Friday evening, he returned home with another woman, making no attempt to hide his actions. Jody saw them together, her heart breaking as the reality of her husband's disinterest and reconciliation became painfully clear. The following morning, Alex handed Jody a folder. Here are the divorce papers, he said. I've already signed them. I'll be back on Monday to collect my things. Have your lawyer contact mine. Alex, please don't do this, Jody begged. I can't lose you. You lost me the moment you decided our vows didn't matter, he replied. Goodbye, Jody. With those words, Alex walked out the door, leaving Jody to face the consequences of her actions alone. Thanks to everyone who took the time to listen to today's stories. If you enjoyed it, please consider liking and subscribing if you haven't already. Feel free to share your thoughts on the events in the comments below. Take care.